Oh, that is ripped. That is so good. Guys, in today's lesson, we're going to talk about ripping your fairway woods and how you do it. Let's have a look right now. So before we get into this video, guys, I want you to get better at golf, and you're going to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. You're going to get free lessons every week. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button. So do that for me. Let's carry on with the lesson. So ripping the fairway wood, a 3-wood off the deck, off tight turf, is a daunting and quite a horrible shot to hit sometimes, as we actually get over it and you're, looking at it down on the ground. You think, God, I've got to get this perfectly, otherwise it's going to be topped along the ground. I'm going to duff it, I'm going to thin it, whatever it may be. There might be water in front of you, because generally we might be going into, a par 5 with them for our second shot, or maybe using it on a par 4 for our longer shot. So it's something that can provoke quite a nerve-wracking experience, and we need to make sure we're doing a couple of things to see that we're not going to be overcome with nerves and we're getting the most out of our fairway woods. So that strike that I just hit then, there was really clean contact. I grazed the ground a little bit, which is quite important, and the ball got up and I had my lovely flight on it. But how did I do that? What had I already preset in my body and in my mind that I had to do to make sure that was going to happen? So first things first, what we've got to make sure is that when we're going to rip this fairway wood, and it's quite a big word to rip a fairway wood, it means getting it out of the middle, getting good distance, getting good height. Everything's got to line up there. So one thing, that is crucial for it is, how is that ball sat? Because I play with, different variants of handicaps all the times when I'm out on the course with my lessons, and see people say, I keep topping my fairway woods and I'm not quite getting them. So, well, where are you using it from? Well, I get it from the rough all the time. And I'm like, what do you mean? You hit it in the rough? Yeah, so what rough are we talking about here? That, is it teed up on the semi? No, well, I've hit a poor drive and I'm trying to get the ball as far down as possible, so I've got my 3-wood out. So the first thing we've got to understand is that, there's hardly any loft on here. There's not much more than your driver. There's only 15 degrees of loft on a 3-wood. So if you're trying to hit it out of some thick rough, the chances are, on the way down as you're swinging, that face is just going to get clogged up with that rough, and you're not going to impart any force into the ball hardly, and it'll just flop out. So key number 1 to take away from this lesson is, make sure you're using it at the right time. If the lie is looking a bit scrappy and a bit horrible, probably not the right time. If the lie has got quite a lot of rough and the ball is now covered halfway up with rough, probably not the right time. If the ball is on the fairway and it's sat nicely, good time to use it. If the ball is just in the semi-rough and it's teed up a little bit, perfect, let's go for it. But use it in the right circumstance. Okay, then 2 other points we need to focus on. One of the things that I see from a lot of people is the ball position. They think that because they're not getting the ball up in the air with it, they're thinning it quite a lot and topping it quite a lot, being one of the main problems. All of a sudden, I start to see a position now where the ball gets back in the stance here, all because the thought process is, well, I'm not getting it up, I keep getting the top of the golf ball. If I move it back, I'll get the golf ball first, and that'll launch it up into the air. Big problem there. When I put this golf ball back in my stance and I lean my hands just to the middle of my body now, what starts to happen is the loft of my 3-wood significantly drops there. So as that's gone down, we see it pointing up towards the sky here. Then we see it pointing almost flat or down. Also, I'm going to be coming down quite steep on it. So we've got to make sure we've got the ball in the right position, because if we've got it back here and I come down steep, that leads to the second problem. Then I start to try and help it up and get back out of the way of the golf ball to see that I'm not going to bury the club into the ground. So what we've got to try and do is, point number 1, make sure we've got the ball in the right position there. So we see now, as I take my setup, my sternum is here, and then the golf ball is about 2 inches to 3 inches in front of there, depending on what wood I'm using. For me, my 3 wood, I play it about a ball to 3/4 of a ball behind my lead heel. So as we see there, as we draw that line back, it's nicely behind that lead heel there, just about an inch behind it. So make sure, point number 1, we're getting that ball in the right position. Then number 2, what we've got to try to imagine, as I said at the start of the video, when I hit that one, I got a nice little bit of turf target side over here. I just got a little bit of a graze. It wasn't like I was taking a big divot like I would do with a wedge, but I just bruised the turf, I grazed it a little bit. That's where, again, I see a lot of faults. Because I'm not getting the ball up in the air with my 3 wood or my 5 wood, I know I'll help it up in the air. So we may have then got the ball in a good position, but what you would see from this angle now, as I swing back, I move almost back towards the camera, because as I'm here, I'm trying to launch it up in the air, and we see that quite a lot of the times, where I see quite a few people walking off the golf ball as if they're moving backwards because they're trying to launch it upwards, and we get that happening where we top it, which is not what we want. What we've got to try and see, like I say, is we get this little graze on the turf. So we've got point 1, we're going to make sure that we're getting it in the right circumstance, so we're using it when it's best to be used, off the fairway or when it's just sat up in the rough. Point 2, let's make sure we get the ball position forwards. If you have been suffering, don't fall into the trap of getting it back and trying to hit down on it. And then point number 3, we've got to get that little graze, and you can just hear that there on the microphone, just a little brush, nice and smooth, and I just take a little bit of turf. If I can now do all these 3 things, I should see again that I get another ripped fairway wood. So ball's good because I'm on the tee here, I've got it in the right position, and my main aim now is to see that I get that little graze. I'm not going to lean back on it, just forward slightly and let that turf, just let the sole of the club kiss the turf, nice and smooth. Little bit out of the neck, but I've picked it off, taken the turf, and it's down the fairway again for me. So 3 things we need to do there to make sure we're going to rip our fairway woods. Is it the right time? Where's the ball position? And what are you trying to do as you hit it? We're not trying to help it up. We've got to kiss the turf as we're going through. So guys, I hope this lesson has helped this week. 3 things did you tick off the list? Do you do all 3 of those every time? If you do, you must be ripping your fairway woods. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the lesson. If you have, do hit the like button down below. And like I said earlier, I want you to get better at golf. So hit that subscribe button. Get your free lessons, and I'll see you in the next one.